It's recording.
Shadow Knows, the Shadowe Crew podcast.
Is the countdown like Wayne's World? Like 3.
Yeah.
That's
We
not-
should do it like, whatever. We'll just cut it how we want. All right.
Just,
Oh no, this is all staying in.
Yeah, this is great. Just like, are we on? Are we on there?
is the camera on?
Too.
Kids,
Good.
mic 1, check.
Hey everybody. Welcome back to episode number 2 of the Shadow Knows Crew podcast. I think everyone's names are on the tiles, so there's no need for introductions.
No.
We would only ask that you follow, like, do all the things that helps the channel grow. Even a thumbs down if you think we suck. We can handle it.
That'd be fantastic.
We can take it.
Yeah.
We could take it. But we're excited. We kicked off our first podcast. Hopefully you all had the opportunity to listen in. And we're happy to jump into some exciting topics centered around not only action figures this time, but I think all things pop culture. And as, again, the channel evolves, we'll talk a bit about what gets us out of bed, what gets us excited, what gets us frustrated, and more. So if there's things that you want us to talk about, feel free to jump into the comment section. We're happy to cover a topic, again, as things progress. But without further ado, gentlemen, before we start on our first topic, how is the world of entertainment going? Because I know the writer's strike, the Hollywood strike has put lots of things on pause, but what are you all doing during this time in which things seem to be a bit slow? There's still content on the air, there's still things to do, but just want to see what's on your minds before we jump into our first topic.
Well, I can tell you right now, I've been doing more YouTube videos. We've been mostly doing a lot more content, but just the average of watching any new episodes, you probably have maybe 1 show a week now, maybe possibly 2. So, and I don't do a lot of reality TV, and I know that's what the networks are trying to push right now. So, it's mostly been just, maintaining, doing some YouTube work, trying to refresh the channel, and, that's pretty much about it.
Yeah, get ready for a bunch of reality shows and game shows. That's going to be it for probably, 3 to 4 months after the strike ends. So, they're using up whatever else they have right now.
Here's a reality show concept for all of you. Now, didn't they bring back American Gladiators a couple of years ago? I think
Yeah,
right?
I went to like 3 tapings of it.
Okay. So hear me out.
Layla Ali was the...
Hear me out. You bring back the old American Gladiators with the old, the tennis balls being fired and the joust. But here's the trick. You bring back all of the old gladiators, regardless of shape, gray hair, some might have kept that shape, and all the former old contestants. There could be some ACL sprains, there could be some light heart attacks, but you make it American Gladiators. To me, that would be more exciting than this re-energized new games. I want to see the classics. I want to see Laser and Storm, 60 years old, battling 55, 60, 75-year-old contestants. What say you? Am I onto something?
Riddick Gladiators.
There's a documentary, I believe it's on Netflix.
Netflix, yeah. I was just going to talk about that.
I don't know if you can bring these people back, man. I think their bodies took a punishment, and I was watching the documentary, and I was like, I don't think that you could get those guys back. I don't even think any of there's several of them that passed away, if I wasn't mistaken.
Yeah,
right?
correct. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know about that one, brother. Maybe an animated version of it.
They had that. They had the animated version in the 90s.
Well, did you really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they did.
Yeah.
Unless I made that shit up in my head.
Well, I'm going to scratch off Jurassic Gladiators from my list.
Yeah, Jurassic Gladiators. Well, you could have AI create it.
Yeah. See, there you go. which is, I think, what the part of the strike is about, is no
Yes.
AI generated content. So we would be the anti group again. Like, I don't think we'd ever find a way back into Hollywood again if we did that, but
No.
time will tell. All right, let's jump into, go ahead, Chet. You had something.
No. Okay, real quick. AI. Have you seen or heard what they're doing with AI in video games? So like normally you would go up to an NPC and you would have like preset things, right? Now basically what it is that you walk up and you use the mic on your headset and you're like, "What's up, shithead? I want to buy something." And it's like, "Well, that's not a nice way to buy anything, but if you want to get something, you can go over there." That's the response from the NPC now.
Oh no. Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, at least they're using it wisely.
I know, like, but that's gonna change. All I'm saying is like just go watch Ready Player One. Because like
that's a good, I like that movie actually. Like,
it's a great movie.
If it's something like that, but I think we're far from that. I think it's like a 30% version of that and a really bad version as it exists today, especially with the Facebook, and then the VR, Apple VR headset. There's no way it's going to be what that movie and or the book said it was going to be. Because I'd be open to that. Not a society where you'd have put goggles and we don't talk to one another, but if you could actually, it looks and feels that way, that'd be pretty badass.
That's the metaverse. What are you talking about?
Yeah, the metaverse that everyone played for like 4 seconds. By the way, it wasn't. It actually, the animation for American Gladiator was 2008 with the relaunch. This thing is funny.
See, if you said like a 1994 version, I would have been open to like looking at it. But 2008, no,
but it looks like 90s animation though, like Hanna-Barbera.
No, good.
No,
that's old, but yeah.
All you got to know about the metaverse, like all the tech as it stands today, is two of the leading tech CEOs are trying to fight in an octagon. That should tell you everything you need to know about like the current state of technology.
Stay home and eat all the freaking chips, Kip.
Napoleon, don't be jealous that I've been chatting online with babes all day. Besides, we both know I'm training to become a cage fighter.
Since when, Kip? You have the worst reflexes of all time.
Try and hit me, Napoleon.
What?
I said come down here and see what happens if you try and hit me.
Such an idiot.
Let me see what your best move is.
I'll go get it.
Jeez.
Well, Apple's gonna lose with their like BS pricing on that headset, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
like that's you're not gonna get $3,500 for like the basic headset. So that's whatever.
You're gonna have to choose between a $3,500 Apple VR headset or the latest like Hasbro like funded project that's gonna run you about $3,800.
It's always Hasbro.
Yeah, always Hasbro.
It's life-size Grimlock. How about that? Wouldn't you pay that?
Right. Yes, I would.
Yes, he would. Yes, he would.
Because it brings me joy.
I can't wait till the day we're talking shit about like the Hasbro funded projects, and in the background, each of us has a funded project in the back.
So, we're just like, I would never pay for that, and it's like all of us just like,
it's just right there, right in the background. Yeah, you know, I do some extra blur behind it to get rid of it.
There's a lot of things going on in the pop culture universe. I think the first thing I'd like to talk about as we talk about Hasbro is there was some news, I think last week, around Hasbro selling eOne, which is some of their film rights and TV rights to, I believe it was Lionsgate, who now like owns that. And then there's some like weird thing where they're going to continue to produce and develop some of the like core concepts under the Hasbro line. I know there's a lot of things going on in Hollywood that was like under the radar, but this could change things. And I want to get everyone's opinion on like what that means, what are your thoughts, and does it even make sense? So I'll let anybody jump in here and kind of talk through what Hasbro is up to.
Well, I remember seeing an article, and when I saw that they sold eOne to Lionsgate, that was a little bit shocking. But the thing that I thought didn't make sense was that the executives are leaving eOne, several of them, and they're moving over to a newly formed Hasbro Entertainment. Now, it didn't make sense. Why sell your entertainment branch and then restart another entertainment branch? But yet the executives, and the reason why you weren't able to, I guess, reap in the full profits and everything of eOne, those guys are now going to run the Hasbro Entertainment. That just didn't make sense to me. The whole flipping and flopping and swapping. You had eOne, already a fully formed entertainment company that had been around for years. I believe at one time they even owned the Death Row library. And piece by piece, you sell it off and everything. And now all of a sudden, those same executives that gave us, let's be honest, the Rise of the Beasts were a pretty good Transformer movie. Yep. But pretty much most of the Hasbro movies have not been that well. And now all of a sudden, those same executives are just going to go over to the new Hasbro company with the same mindset, and you're supposed to give us better movies. And I'm hoping that this turns out good for Hasbro, but it just seems like they've stuck to the same thing that we're doing.
And Mattel just came in and ate their lunch. It's like, oh, let's start a little thing. Let's do a little Barbie movie, and it's the biggest thing that's ever been in Warner Brothers history.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
crazy.
Hasbro just hasn't done that at all across any of their products.
And I think too, if you think about the sale, it was like, I don't know how many years ago where everyone was talking about Lionsgate has potential to be one of the big companies, right? But up until then, they were doing off-branded shit that no one wanted to fund, right? It was like that. It was like that whole thing of, in my opinion, back in the day when Lionsgate was kicking it up a notch, they were basically like blockbuster films, right? Mm-hmm. Like Boondock Saints, no one wanted to fund it. Blockbuster said, "Cool, we'll give you money." It was straight to VHS for Boondock Saints, and it became like a cult classic. Mm-hmm. But the idea behind Hasbro selling off a lot of the eOne stuff is mostly because like Hasbro may have its foot in the door entertainment wise, but no one associates Hasbro with eOne or with film and television, right? You'll see like G.I. Joe, they put like Hasbro at the bottom, but like, would you go see G.I. Joe by Hasbro or a Lionsgate G.I. Joe? You're going to go see a Lionsgate G.I. Joe because Lionsgate, to be honest, doesn't really let people down. And with the IPs that they're getting, like Lionsgate has in their pocket the correct people. Well, they did. Now I don't know, but they had the correct people in their pocket to be able to take these IPs and turn them into something that people were going to want to see. And it's got the name behind it, not like, oh, this is an eOne production. Like, who the fuck is that? Right? But oh, this is Lionsgate. It's like, oh yeah, they made a bunch of films I really like to watch. They're good at thrillers. They're good at whatever you like from Lionsgate.
Marvel presents Man Thing.
I think it's a good move. And I just want a M.A.S.K. movie out of this is all I want so that I can get all the toys again.
Well, you got to think Hasbro's going to have to leverage themselves up now with, especially after you saw that the success that Mattel had with Barbie. And like I was reading the same thing about M.A.S.K. It's like that's an underutilized toy line that I think will pop back up. And it does seem prime for it to jump to the big screen.
Well, yeah, they were going to do M.A.S.K. for a while. And then the sale, the moves, all that other stuff just kind of like killed it. But that'd be that's a money pit waiting to happen if they release that.
Exactly.
So it's like people that like G.I. Joe but don't want to commit, but also like Transformers but would rather like G.I. Joe can have M.A.S.K.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's really all M.A.S.K. was. Not King Arthur and the Round Table with cars that transform into helicopters. Mobile Army Strike Command, Vicious Evil Network of Mayhem. Those are the two guys.
And speaking of M.A.S.K, are there, and I know probably that's yours, chat, but please, if there's anything else outside of M.A.S.K, but are there toy lines, toy franchises that you'd love to see become a movie or TV series from the 70s, 80s, 90s, even current, are the ones that have never made the smaller big screen? I'd love to hear that, because I think M.A.S.K would definitely be a brand new introduction to a new generation, and I think it could be very, very similar in terms of G.I. Joe, maybe even better than I think what G.I. Joe became in the big screen, which is kind of very cheesy, and you threw some big names in there, but wasn't quite sticky. You made a lot of money internationally. So love to know what's on your minds about some of your potential franchises.
Army Ants.
What?
Army Ants. Oh, I remember. I think I remember Army Ants.
I don't remember that.
You guys don't remember? Oh man, Army
Ants.
Ants.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
Now I'm gonna have to actually take a deep dive in this right now.
Up and hills, down and dales, as we hit the dusty trail, Army Ants, we go marching along. We are bad, we are boss, we've got guts that swish and squash. Army Ants, we go marching along. Army Ants. Then it's high, high, he for the anti-artillery. Shout out your orders loud and strong. Grab the eggs! For where'er we go, you will always know. Army Ants, we go marching along. Army Ants. Sold in squadrons of 3 and 8 from Hasbro.
Yeah, Army Ants. Army Ants would be fantastic, because that was a toy that was like, for whatever reason, was epic, and they had like the Colonels, and they made a whole thing of Army Ants, and then Street Sharks.
Oh, well, Street Sharks, I think they are going to reintroduce that toy line back out again.
Awesome. Yeah, Street Sharks would be. I want to see Silverhawks.
You talking about film wise or another animated show?
So I'm on the fence, because Silverhawks in and of itself is kind of a shallow IP, right? Like it's not really in depth versus like Transformers, where they created the entire Bible and universe before anything else happened. Like, but I mean, like Silverhawks, it's like space with fucking cool people, with all these like intergalactic battles. Like it's endless possibilities. I think it'd be good.
I know Super 7 just released their wave 1 of those figures now, and I think they're going to do Thundercats. They've already done. They're going to do Silverhawks, and then their third little less known properties, TigerSharks.
Got a tiger by the tail. Hold on, TigerSharks. TigerSharks.
That they're going to do. So they had land, sea, and air that they did, and it's very interesting, because I was a pretty big TigerShark fan. Not so much Silverhawks, but I did like Thundercats.
And there was one that's in mid 80s. It was like radio controlled robot dinosaurs called Zoids.
Oh, I remember Zoids.
And that was cool. They had like tiny little guys that would sit in the heads, and it was like a spaceship kind of a thing. But it was, it would move and stuff. But I don't really know what the story was behind it, but they looked pretty cool.
The Zoid, giant Zerk, a creature a full 20 inches long. Powered by batteries which you supply, it lumbers along, swinging its head ominously, which enables you to pretend it's either a creature from the prehistoric past or a futuristic monster machine. The Zoid, giant Zerk, ferocious looking, yet it is safe, even in the hands of your little sister. The Zoid, giant Zerk. You put it together by Tommy.
Do you all remember M.U.S.C.L.E? Those little plastic figures of different colors. They almost look like toys that you would get out of a claw machine or like a quarter drop.
Didn't those spawn off of Stretch Armstrong?
I don't know. This was like in the late 70s, early 80s.
Well, because I know Stretch Armstrong was like 76, I think, his first release.
Like search muscle, and it's M.U.S.C.L.E, and it stands for Millions of Unusual Small Creatures Lurking Everywhere. And it was
so good.
And it was created in Japan, and it was just like these collectibles, super cheap collectibles. And I remember like that's what was cool about it is like these things came in like little blister packs, and like again, like you could trade them, and it would be really freaking cool because I think from the merchandising standpoint, you reintroduce these things to a broader audience where it's like super cheap to manufacture again, because they're not really action figures, but it's actually an interesting story and super zany and weird, and I think it would work today.
They're just like skin color, right?
Yeah, but then they were introducing color ones as well. But that was the original one, the skin colors. And the detail was actually pretty cool. The molds were super weird. There were like, like luchadors and like alien looking dudes, and like it was cool. So that would be mine, just because I think it'd be super easy to come up with some weird shit, because I don't think there's much story behind it, but there's a hell of a lot of characters you could bring back.
Muscle Invasion Update. Scientists discover muscle things have come to wrestle. America's only hope, the Battle and Belt and the wrestling ring.
He moves left. He's hooked one. Into the Battle and Belt it goes. He's got another. Folks, this wrestling ring may save the world. One more to go. He's got him. His Battle and Belt is full. Hard knocking, rockin' ring. Battle and Belt. Muscle figure packs each sold separately. New from Mattel. Can you save the world?
Yeah, that was during the time frame where, basically that point of articulation was zero. You could actually you could sell a ton of those. But today they may have to update the figures just a little bit.
Yeah.
It looked kind of like the creepy crawler creature maker figures.
Yeah, I remember that.
Are you talking about the easy bake oven for boys?
Yes. Which, first of all, what kind of a toy is it? It's like, oh yeah, we're gonna make hot metal and wax that you can make, and do all this stuff. But
no safety regulations.
That was 1970s and 80s. That was obviously you could do anything. You burn down a house if you wanted to.
They're squirmy and wormy and purple and green, the grossest little creatures that you've ever seen.
Creepy crawlers.
Build a monster mold with the colored plastic goop and make a creepy crawler from a yucky monster soup. They're yucky, squirmy, wormy, very scary, sometimes hairy, squiggly, wiggly, creepy crawling.
Creepy crawlers.
Gross out your sister, embarrass your dad. You can be a little creep without being bad.
Creepy Crawlers Workshop with plastic goof.
So you know what? Furby would be a good like movie, but it'd be like Gremlins.
Yeah.
What
about My Pet Monster?
Those were awesome. My Pet Monster was cool.
Furby versus Teddy Ruxpin.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Versus My Buddy.
Yeah,
I'm sure that's a full moon movie somewhere on like Tubi.
Yeah.
How are you today?
Warn your friends. Warn everyone.
Welcome to my nightmare.
We're not safe awake or asleep.
Why won't you die?
Hi there, my name is Teddy Ruxpin.
Furby versus Ruxpin.
Place your bets.
Mr. Storm, anything that comes to mind for you?
No, actually, I think Dr. Brentley and I was talking earlier today about RoboCop. They had the animated show.
Yeah.
They had the animated show, which I think they had several animated shows that were terrible. And then I think one live action show. And I'm like, that just screams to me that you could update it, especially with like, you know, CGI animation and everything today. That would be something I'd like to see them actually take right and put onto the screen, because that animated show, I remember that was a terrible show, man.
Detroit, the near future. Officer Alex J. Murphy and his partner Ann Lewis fight to rid the decaying city of the criminal element which infests it. After being mortally wounded in the line of duty, Officer Murphy is outfitted by OCP with bulletproof titanium robotic parts and with computer-enhanced motor and sensory capabilities. He has become the ultimate super cop, RoboCop.
That's a terrible show.
Well, how do you take a rated R movie and make it a show for kids and sell them toys?
Yeah,
very, very carefully.
1980s.
Well, remember though, didn't the toy come out after the animation?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did.
So they were just using the toys to sell the animation.
Pretty much. And I think they also had, if like the cops, I think they also had the fire caps for the RoboCop toys. If I'm not mistaken, actually, I might be wrong on that, but
RoboCop and the Ultra Police, the only cops with rapid repeat cap firing.
RoboCop battling the worst criminals like Headhunter and Nitro.
But I think NECA makes a RoboCop figure currently that looks fantastic, but those ones from the 80s and the 90s were just a terrible set of toys, man.
If somebody came back and said, tell me a movie that explains the 80s, I would give them RoboCop.
Yes.
Because it had like cheesiness, comedy, a little horror, sci-fi, action, just it had everything. To me, that's like one of the most iconic movies. And some people don't like it, but I think it's just like it takes all these different genres and puts it into one, and it happens to be rated R too. But then again, it's kind of cool for kids. It's RoboCop, but you made it not for kids. It's just like such a weird movie, but such a great movie.
I'd buy that for $1.
RoboCop 2, a different story. RoboCop 3, it should have been burned and never released. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think I went to see RoboCop in the theater. I think my mother took me to see it, and I begged her to see it only because of the fact of RoboCop. And by the time she saw the movie and the curse scene and everything, she was like, "Okay, wait, this was not what I was expecting." So we had to sneak to see RoboCop 2, and I believe Dr. Brent and I didn't we go see RoboCop 3?
Oh God, was it 3 that we saw?
I think it was 3 because it's the one where he's flying, and I'm like, "Oh man, I want to walk out the theater."
RoboCop 3.
I've never been so disappointed when I saw like Frank Miller's name on the screen. I was like, no, this guy couldn't have wrote that, man.
Just when you thought like RoboCop 3 was the worst third part movie of all time, then like The Matrix comes along and Beverly Hills Cop comes along, and you're Alien 3. Then you're like, okay, it can be outdone.
All right, they're ruining all of them. Did they ever do anything with biker mice from Mars?
They have a new toy line, but I haven't seen anything about animation or anything popping up. Or I can't imagine that's going to go to live action.
Oh no, actually, didn't they just say that Ryan Reynolds was doing something with biker mice from Mars?
Interesting.
Maybe.
I could see that.
I would. My next question, I guess, would be whether or not you were a GigaPet or a Tamagotchi.
Neither one. I had a real pet.
Yeah, that was a little after my time.
Yeah.
Whatever. You guys know you have them.
Yeah.
And then there was one where Chris and I had talked about this. I was a massive POG fan. You remember those? POGs? I still have mine somewhere here. But we looked into like, would it be possible to make those? And some dude in Costa Mesa is just sitting on the license. He won't give it. Like you can't do it. Like you literally can't do the. He's just sitting on the license. I looked it up because I wanted to do it for the board game, and I was like, dude, this guy owns it. He's in Costa Mesa, California. Like I'm going over there real quick.
Probably got all the pieces in the warehouse and everything. Yeah. So one day when it blows up, I'm gonna. This was big in the 90s. Just give it some time. Shit's gonna blow up. Because right now, technically, we're in like the re-80s.
So
Yes.
in like 5 more years, we'll be in the re-90s.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, aren't they making a new Gremlins movie? Did I read that?
They made
somewhere?
an animated one for HBO Max. Well, I believe now it's called the Max. But yeah, they did it an animated one that was on.
That's a Gremlins too. That's another one. Jeez, boy. Moving on to some new stuff that's coming out. I wanted to get everyone's take on it because there's a lot of stuff. You know, again, the Hollywood shutdown. But there are things that are ready to be released. Coming off a stellar box office, we talk about Barbie. Oppenheimer, I think, is the highest grossing movie in the history of film to never reach #1. That's due to Barbie's success, which is incredible. But now we have, the Ninja Turtles that did pretty well as well. Blue Beetle. Now we know DC franchise notoriously has not been great. Everyone was like super, not this group, but everyone was excited about The Flash. That turned out to be a really big bomb. And now we have Blue Beetle, which is an unknown character to most general audiences, unless you really follow the DC franchise. So I want to get everyone's thoughts on Blue Beetle, and then we'll jump into some things around some TV series that are coming out as well. But first, thoughts on Blue Beetle? Anybody excited about it? What's everyone's takes?
No.
That's a quick take.
Not excited at all because it's a DC property and they can't get their shit together with live action. And then when they do get it together, they just get rid of it for whatever reason they find fit. But they've like, I don't know. I think, people can hate me, but perfect example of why I'm not excited about it is they brought James Gunn in and look what he's doing to the universe already. And I'll stop there. And so it's Blue Beetle is such an unknown character that they could screw the pooch on that shit and no one would know that it's garbage.
Yeah,
that's
true.
That's
except
why
for the one diehard Blue Beetle.
the one dude that's like, this isn't the fucking origin story.
Yeah. If we see a thumbs down, that's that one Blue Beetle fan.
Yeah, it's just such a, that's the problem I have with it is like they have failed successfully at trying to use big titles that now they're like, well, we could go, we could go back and get the Blue Beetle and make a movie that no one gives a fuck about. And then it'll be great. And I think that's what they do with Blue Beetle. Will it be good? I don't know. But I think that also might be a positive because if you don't know the origin, you might be excited to see the Blue Beetle.
I think they did a disservice when they brought in Gunn and they basically stated that they were gonna like abandon the other universe. Well, you pretty much told us that now all these movies that are coming out for the next year and a half, 2 years are obsolete.
Pointless.
So you pretty much devalue your film franchises before. And look, I'm not saying that Shazam 2 was great or anything, but when people know that there's no point in watching these films,
then they're not going to watch them.
Yeah, they're not going to watch them, and you wonder why people are going to theaters. Now, also too, they weren't written well, So,
no.
And I'm looking at the advertisement for Blue Beetle, and being a comic book reader most of my life, I know the character, but no way, shape, or form was I excited when I saw the trailers. And I was like, this just seems like they just rushed this to product, and it's a shame because I believe there's so many great DC characters, and they can't re-get that magic of when they were in the early 70s and the 80s with the Michael Keaton Batman films. They just can't get that done right because I think they're trying to compete with Marvel and they're rushing things.
When Marvel started, they had Iron Man, which most Americans didn't know, but they handled it correctly and they made a good movie and it blew up. They could have done the same thing. It's just I don't think they did it right, probably.
Well, but with Iron Man though, that's a perfect example, right? Like Iron Man, no one knew who he was. Realistically, you're correct, but they got a director who gave a shit and did know who he was, and then they screwed it all over when they made him make the Pepsi ad, and he's just like, "Oh, I don't care," because Iron Man 3 is just like a giant Pepsi commercial. So it was like he had written like Iron Man 3 to like cap it all off, and they're like, well, we want all these like advertisements, and so then that's why it was like, I don't know if I like it, but yeah, like I think that it could be done right, but like most of these people that are getting to write these movies and direct these movies are just like, you know, I picked up the comic and read it. I could adapt this to TV or whatever. It's like, I have a feeling Blue Beetle, you'll watch it in the theater and you'll be like, that should have been a Hallmark.
Or like a Roku original or a Tubi original
Roku.
or something.
Yeah, Fubu TV original.
Yeah. Hey, Fubu TV, I can see that. Here's what I think. And Dr. Brantley, I like your point on the Iron Man piece, which is, you know, we're past the stage now, right? DC has tried to bank their franchise on the big characters, the Batmans, the Superman. You know, we'll jump into what Superman legacy is going to be, and James Gunn at the helm. You got the Wonder Womans, whatever, and then you have these like independent, like lesser known characters like an Iron Man. And I wonder if the strategy moving forward should be focus on one of those characters that could be relatable, that could be a really great story, that could catapult the new DC franchise. And I think the argument is that you're starting again with Superman, which I get makes sense from a box office perspective. But perhaps in like what Marvel did, like, is they used Iron Man, right, which is still pretty popular among comic people, and then from there catapulted to other more, I think, well-known characters, and then you see where Marvel's at today. So I'm wondering, like, is it a mistake for James Gunn now to start again at the helm and start with Superman? And I think the argument, the feedback thus far, and he's commented on social media, is that like there's a bunch of characters in this one, and people are concerned that it's going to be, you know, over inundated with all these different characters. You're trying to get them all screen time, and are you going to devote enough story to Superman? The argument for me is like, we've seen like 100 Supermans. Like, what other origin story can you tell? I think everybody probably pretty much understands, however you want to tell it, the Superman origin story. And so I guess that's my argument, is like, why do you need to start with Superman again? Start with a character that's less known. Like, and so I'd love to get your takes on that. Like, maybe if you were in charge of it, what character would you start? Because to me, it doesn't make sense to start with Superman. That's just my 2 cents.
Booster Gold.
Dr. Brentley said that earlier this morning when we were on the phone. He was like, Booster Gold. You could do you get the comedy version of it. You get a character that went from the future back to the past, become a better superhero.
Yeah, because he's fought alongside how many Justice League, like, iterations of Justice League, and this is a dude who is a football player and got like so like what you could do, like Booster Gold. No one will know who he is. A badass character though, but I mean, they're not going to tap into that. They see that's the thing. I don't outside of that, I don't really know where I would start in the DC universe.
Have they ever done Nightwing right?
No. Not even it's like, even the series that's on that's on M.A.S.K. It's not good.
No. But that's another character I think, like, okay, like that is a quick pivot to like introduction of that segment of the DC universe. But it's like a character that's cool enough that I think it's like, oh, there's some similarities with characters like Daredevil and Batman.
I take it back. I would do Damian Wayne. I would do Damian Wayne, or I would do Batman Beyond, because McGinnis would be a badass way to sunset like old school Batman and get into all the future tech. And you could bring in Damian Wayne, you could bring in like Barbara, you could bring in all these characters that they want to try to do with James Gunn. But if you start with either Damian Wayne or you could take your pick, but like if they did a live action Batman Beyond and like nailed it, their whole cinematic universe would take a turn for the good, because Batman Beyond brought in some like wild characters. Like if you go back and watch that animation, knowing that it was like a mistake, right? It was literally a mistake animation, and you watch how good that animation is, that would be an epic freaking like kickoff to a newer version of a cinematic universe, which James Gunn should do. He should just go like, cool, let's get McGinnis, put him in the bat suit, have him like do some time travel, sunset this one, sunset this Batman, sunset this Batman, sunset this Superman, right? Like just, you could get rid of them all in that way and then start this whole new like crazy DC universe with like one of the craziest Jokers ever to exist, some of the biggest clans, like high-tech technology. Like I would just go that route, because you're going to do this new origin story. No one's going to watch Superman because you got rid of Henry Cavill. That's just not going to happen. It's like, if you think people are going to watch the new season of Witcher, they're not. No one cares about Superman, the guy that he recasted for it. It's like a Wish version of Henry Cavill. So like no one's going to watch it, but I would start there, Booster Gold or Batman Beyond, because and I think you could do a really good Damian Wayne movie, right? Like you really could, or that would turn into Red Hood. You could take your pick.
Well, I think that what they have to do is start controlling themselves, a tad bit more restraint. It took Marvel at least 6 or 7 movies before they jumped into the Avengers, maybe a little less than that. But, they practice restraint. DC doesn't practice restraint. They tried to build a Justice League before they actually had the entire Justice League movies out. And I think that one thing that DC, Warner Brothers technically does well, their merchandise as well, their movies aren't. Marvel does great movies, but their merchandise is not well. It's like they have the counterbalance to one another. But like, with Warner Brothers was the bigger company, and they basically had the time to take their times. But like Marvel showed the restraint. Like, we have to bring these characters in. We have to go with the Iron Mans. We have to run with the Thors. We have to run with, all, the Captain America origins. They needed to slowly introduce them in and then build some excitement to the characters instead of just dropping them in and like, you're going to accept these characters. And now we're going to move up to the fighting the world's greatest battle. It's like if the first Avenger movie, instead of Loki, if they would have had to fight Thanos, I think that probably wouldn't have worked for that universe. But they took a smaller villain and then they moved it up into a bigger one. And they immediately did the Justice League movie, and they dropped Darkseid in there. And they're like, there's no coming back from that character. There's no other major characters. You can't go any bigger than Darkseid in DC. Exactly. You could, but it wouldn't make any sense. There were 5 movies before the Avengers, by the way. Okay, 5. But if you think about that too, though, like the first like phases of Marvel, they weren't afraid to mess up. They weren't, because it was a bunch of people making the movies that gave a shit about the movies, right? So they weren't afraid to like, okay, maybe this wasn't good. But now if you look at the new phase, like the one we're currently in, no one cares, right? Like all the stuff that's on Disney Plus is written by like college interns. It doesn't make any sense. No one's read a comic book in their life. Right? It's like the biggest complaint I have with the Marvel Cinematic Universe is how they portray Thanos. Like I've never liked it. I think it's garbage, because Thanos wants to kill everybody because Death banned him from her realm. He can never die, and all he does is kill people to bring up his death toll to try to get her approval because he fell in love with her. That's why Thanos kills people, not because he's trying to like balance the world. So that's always been like a garbage thing for me. Like that ruins the whole idea of Thanos. But DC is I think, going to do the opposite, because people are over Marvel. If they can reset and they can take the time, they have the ability to grab everybody that is over Marvel to jump to DC. And that's because
if you've been reading comics for a long time or just have ever read comics, you'll know that DC tends to have better storylines in their comics than Marvel, where Marvel is kind of like the fanboy fangirl club. DC has like some dark stories, and they're well thought out, and they typically take a longer run. And I think that makes for really good live action. But where DC kills it every time is like their animated series. It's great. It's fantastic.
So why not take the people in charge of the DC animation and give them free reign to produce the movies?
So I don't think they want to pay them. I don't think they want to.
But that's what I think. But that's what I don't understand, right? Like I think there's something to be said, as you said, about people in charge in writing this that perhaps they have read comics but not deeply embedded in the knowledge piece. I think one thing that works, like for the stuff that's been really great for Star Wars, has been Dave Filoni, because he is like he's the Bible of the Star Wars universe. Yeah. Like that's why Lucas literally passed the torch in some capacity, because he just knew like if you asked him a question, he knew all these different things. And I think if you're going to really kickstart this DC universe, you need someone creative lens, and maybe that is James Gunn, because he's done some really great work on the Marvel side. But who's going to be the one that is like the Bible, right? Who's going to pull some of these really great stories from the DC universe over the past 30, 40 years, these great stories, some of the dark stuff. That's where I don't think it has been disclosed, or it's probably going to be another mistake, where it's going to be appeals to a mass audience and we'll lose that piece that makes a franchise or a universe stick for years to come. And so I think that's the problem. Dr. Brantley, any last thoughts on this before we move on?
Well, they need to get the right people behind the scenes on this stuff. Now, I mean, James Gunn is talented. Like the Guardians movies have been great. But, we have to wait and see how he's going to handle the DC characters and the universe and the tone of it all. You need to get someone different than, like the last couple of things. For like 15 years now, they've had Jeff Johns as like producer. Yeah. And like, Green Lantern and, all those failed ones, it's like, get the people that were involved with that stuff away and try and come at it fresh.
How about you just take all the people from Blade 1 and make them let them make all the movies? I'm serious, man. Like
they did League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, so
that's why they've never done movies again.
That would make you exit Hollywood if anything would have.
A couple more things on what's coming out. There's two things in particular that I want to get everyone's take on. First is The Walking Dead, massive hit. When that came out, I think every single person that I knew was into zombies. I mean, Chet got a zombies game. That speaks to like the popular. It was everywhere. Zombies. You go to conventions, Walking Dead, big celebrities, the comic books. Like Kirkman was like it was crazy. And now we are at a stage where I think the audience has fallen off quite a bit, except for the diehards. I wasn't even aware that the series was still on, but apparently it's come to a conclusion. And now there's a spinoff for the character Daryl that I think is a fan favorite for those loyal. So question for everyone is this a rebirth? Will we see The Walking Dead back into a mass audience? Will this do well? Or is it where it's dead and it's going to be, pretty soon on Roku or Tubi or Fubo TV, which doesn't exist, but I'd love to see what that looks like in the future. I mean, so everyone's take on this, like what's Walking Dead Daryl series spinoff, good or bad? No. Okay.
Dumpster fire. And that's because they already have The Walking Dead Dead City. I've tried to watch that, okay? And that has Negan in it. And every time I'm just like, let's just light this shit on fire and send it off. because
they ran their course. They ran their course.
It's been years. Jesus Christ, that thing was running Comic-Cons when it came out.
Yes.
Like it.
Do you think
it was out for like
that,
not even a year? What?
Do you think that Negan baseball bat, right? His introduction where he hit, what's the character's name that he smashed? Glenn. Do you think that's a symbolic? Like that was the jumping of the shark? I feel like I was like from that moment on, that was like the peak, like the introduction of that character. And if I recall, things progressively started to go downhill. I feel like that bat scene was like the pinnacle, and then it could never stop.
There he goes!
Well, because it was never like no one expected to see that shit on TV. And to be honest, that's the whole jumping off point for Dead City is like the girl that Glenn slept with. Maggie. I don't even remember. Yeah, Maggie. Yeah. Like she is like the main character in Dead City, and she has to get through Dead City with Negan. Right. It's like I think that is where they were like, we don't really know where we're going with this.
I think what did it in was, I think Negan, but I think it was the absence. I know Negan lived longer in the book, but the series doesn't exactly always follow the book. And he ran his course. There was a point where they should have killed that character off. And he's time and time again, he's escaped certain death. And it got to the point where fans were believing like, well, this character's untouchable. And once you let the fans know that this character is untouchable,
they don't care.
You've lost the fans. And I think it's the Negan effect. I think Negan was such a big villain. And I think that they run the same cycle. It's the people are worse than the zombies. And they find someone else, that whether it's the governor or whoever, there's always someone else that's far worse than the actual threat outside. But you run a course with that. And you've gotten to the point where, when I think that there was a head of AMC said, I think we have like another 20 years of Walking Dead stories. I'm like, that's impossible. It's like there's not enough fanfare for it. You have to see that, when you try to do the world beyond, it's going to be, it's going to be a new Unlimited series. Wait a minute. Nope. It's just going to be 2 seasons worth. And then now they ran Fear of the Walking Dead. They destroyed that into the ground. It's just, they just keep running the same storyline and putting these people in the point where it's the people that are worse than the zombies. And I think that it's run its course. And I think if you were smart, you might leave it dormant for like maybe 5 or 6 years, let like a little bit of excitement blow over and relaunch it somewhere down the line. But I think by continuously keeping it on, I think you're just hurting the franchise now.
That happened, because Glenn was a good character, but I still kept watching it, and then it did slowly start going down. But the moment I stopped completely was when they killed Carl, he's supposed to live in the books, and so I don't know if it's like they didn't like the kid or what. But, it's like when they killed him off as like the heart of the show, I was like, okay, I don't need to see. So I haven't watched any of the other stuff. And the last thing I need is Daryl in France looking at zombies.
Yeah.
You mean walkers?
Whatever the hell they're called.
Yeah, that's been my whole problem with that shit. It's like, they're zombies, dude.
Yeah.
They're walkers.
Well,
right.
Well, I will say this. We've got one topic left on Hollywood, and then we're going to wrap up this podcast, and that is the Continental and John Wick spinoff. I think everyone likes John Wick.
Absolutely.
If you don't like it, right? It's just I've always wanted to get more of the cultural piece of like what backstory of John Wick, and we saw some of those things organically happen over the different sequels, and the Continental and like all the different like hitmen and like the legacy behind it was always so fascinating to me. And then when Ian McShane was introduced, I was like, geez, you put Ian McShane in every fucking thing, even if it's terrible, he's really good. So they're doing a spinoff. Thoughts? Is this something you're all excited about? Could this kill the John Wick franchise if it's too much of John Wick, or do you think this is a good way to carry on the legacy of this character?
Well, so first off, we talk about like movies in threes, like, okay, after like number 2, you expect number 3 to be shitty. All 4 John Wicks are fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
All 4 of them are fantastic. Some are better than others. I'm not saying they're all great, but they're all fantastic. The Continental is just an insider's look, and I don't think that you're going to get upset because John Wick 4 wrapped it up. And so I think Continental is going to kind of answer that itch that at least me, I have the same itch about John Wick, which is like, well, now I'm intrigued as to like why the Continental is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to know like what it, and we got to see some peaks of that, right? Like we saw when he was talking to people and he was trying to figure out, like we saw what was going on, but we didn't see. So I think that's where this is now. If they do, like, I don't know if they can do like 3 movies, but
no, I think the smart thing that they did, I think it's like 3 episodes. And I think that if you write what you have the space to do, you don't really write and say, all right, we're just going to put this within 10 episodes. You're like, you know what? This story goes 3 episodes, fine. And I think that that's a smart thing. I think you're not oversaturating the universe, because I know they're going to have that. And then the ballerina is supposed to kick off in the film. And 3 is not bad. I don't think you're cramming it down our throats. I do think, you want to see the early days of the Continental. They did it in a different timeline. It's not like it's like they're just regurgitating the same information we've seen. Yeah. So I think it's incredibly smart. I believe it's in the 70s, if I'm not mistaken. And I thought the one controversial casting that I liked was having Mel Gibson, because you're already pulled up buzz and people are already going to be talking, and there's going to be some people upset, some people that's kind of liking it. But I think that was a very good hire, because look, love or hate Mel Gibson, the man's been a good actor. He's a great director. He's had some unfortunate personal problems in his life. Who cares? His work should stand for it, and the man always delivers pretty good work, man.
Yeah. Well, and to be honest, Peacock doesn't really do anything. I haven't really seen anything bad that Peacock's done when it's like this level.
They just don't have enough content. Is their problem. That's why they're losing, shitloads of money, because
I mean,
they haven't invested enough.
Yeah, they did that Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, which if you haven't watched it, it's great.
It's all right.
I'd rather watch RoboCop 3.
Well, it's based in the same universe.
Well, they actually did stuff like The Lost Symbol, which was really good.
It was good, yes.
Robert Langdon character. But John Wick has such a cool and huge backstory and world that, you can do all sorts of stuff just in that world, filling in little bits that, and if you just do it correctly and hardcore like the movies, it's going to be amazing.
Well, how come they never done John Leguizamo's character? Like, he's the guy that's with the garage and everything, but he's got to be more than that. And how come he hasn't came back in any of the other movies?
Because he was filming PS4 commercials.
But that's a character right there. There's so many other characters that they can examine and explore, and I think they've just tapped into it, but they're doing it in a smart way. They're just not. They're not saying, "Oh, well, this is an unlimited series." No, like Dave's saying, this is going to be 3 episodes, and then we'll see from there. I think that's incredibly intelligent to do. Don't oversaturate the universe, and don't make too many episodes where people now hurts the actual main product, because God knows there's going to be a John Wick 5. We all know that's going to happen.
Yeah, and don't stretch out, something that is 3 episodes into something that's 6 or 8 or 10, because they would have kept the same story and just like, oh, we're going to pad this with a bunch of extra bullshit.
I think John Wick could be the next Bond. And what I mean by that is if they continue to do them right and Keanu Reeves one day gets too old to do it, they can carry on the franchise if they treat it as delicately as they have been, and they've been giving us what the fans want. It could be something along those lines, right? Like not to the extent of, the espionage piece of Bond, but I think it could be a legendary character that could live on past Keanu. So we'll see how it goes, right? But I think there's no question the first 4 movies have been really great, and none of them have been, letdowns. And that's pretty impressive considering all the people and all the bullshit involved in Hollywood that can control things. And so kudos to Keanu and the team for, protecting that franchise as best as possible.
Well, and you could do a young John Wick with a different actor and all the stuff before he met his wife and retired when he was the boogeyman.
Yeah,
right. Like that would be the most scary character when he had absolutely no remorse, nothing he cared about.
Yeah, that's always fascinating. Is like, geez, like what? I can't even imagine what that looked like when he was like probably in his prime versus
with a pencil.
Hey, gentlemen, it was a blast. Before we adjourn, one recommendation for people listening or people watching on a series that you watched or currently watching, maybe you haven't finished it, you're in progress, that you would recommend the team, the people that are watching here. Again, subscribe, like the channel, or you can, thumbs down. We don't care. We appreciate, the listen and the views. If it's in the car, if it's at home, if it's during a conference call that you don't give a shit about, we appreciate you supporting the channel. But love to hear anybody, just one thing, anime, TV, anything that you're watching that's really captured your interest.
Strange Worlds, Star Trek. It's actually the next thing close to the original series. It's been I was pleasant surprised because most of the Star Trek series have been kind of polarizing on certain aspects, but Strange Worlds.
Its 5-year mission: to explore strange new worlds.
I think it's a very good show, and if you're a person that's not into Star Trek, it's a good jumping in point.
Besides, Strange New Worlds is about the only new thing I'm watching right now. My favorite show is The Curse of Oak Island. Little reality, but searching for treasure.
You're putting all those actors in Hollywood out of business. You do know this is the reason why they're on the picket lines, and you just mentioned the reality show.
Hey, if they find, the Ark of the Covenant or tons of gold and stuff, it don't matter. You can pay all the actors.
I will say a precursor to this, because I'm in progress of season 1, so it could turn out to be shit, is Silo on Apple TV. Is really good so far. So I don't know if anybody's watched that, but it's really good, really, really good. So we'll see how it turns out. So no spoilers, but a couple episodes in, I've been pretty blown away. Some really original content. So I'd recommend you all checking it out. And as the podcast continues, I'll let you know if you should pivot away or continue watching. And chat to wrap this up.
Mythic Quest.
Apple TV.
Yeah, Apple TV Mythic Quest. It's funny. It's great. The second season, maybe not as intense as the first season, but it's funny. It's good. I don't watch. Maybe One Piece anime, but Mythic Quest on Apple TV is pretty good.
Awesome. Pleasure chatting with you all. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. And we'll see you next week.